Greetings and welcome to In-Depth. I'm Dike Rostant. Mel Gabriel is a social entrepreneur, producer, and writer. When she shared a post that she was open to speaking engagements during the month of October, we leapt at the opportunity to have her on. She joins us now to share her story of survivorship. Thank you for making the time, Mel. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation. But I want to start off with the question, how important is patient-centered advocacy and having representation from persons who have been on similar journeys?
I guess it's as important as any other type of advocacy where, traumatic events happen and people are recovering from it. We would like to think that patients are typically at the center of any marketing scheme or ploy, but that's not often the case. So this is just a matter of, reminding people of the true purpose behind October.
And we're going to get into October and what October can or may not signify in just a bit. But when you put that post out, you also, it feels as though you put qualifiers. So you're looking at organizations or spaces rooted in empathy, education, and mindfulness. Explain the emphasis on these terms and these qualities, thanks.
The entire idea of pink washing, it lends itself to corporations and people, getting wrapped up in the idea of Pinktober. And it's a great marketing aspect of it, but it also means that sometimes people forget that there are actual, survivors or warriors or patients or even, the departed behind this whole pinkness. And it's a triggering month for a lot of people, a lot of us, and we can't often exist very well in October. It's a harrowing kind of time. It brings up so much of the experience, and it's frankly kind of annoying when all people talk about is wear pink and you'll raise awareness. That's not all you need. It's a weird space to be in. So when I open myself up for speaking engagements, I like to lean into spaces where people remember the cause and remember that there are actual humans, experiencing this. And if I'm going to talk about my journey, it needs to be met with that level of care and compassion. Some people just want to get their targets off and hit their KPIs, and they're not really thinking about how does this person actually feel in telling this story? Where are they coming from? Maybe I should send a car for them, or maybe I should make sure they're very comfortable. Something like that, just little things that aid in the experience. I think we often miss the mark, so I needed to make that very clear because people will, they'll take advantage.
And on the point of persons on the other side taking advantage, how important is it for you to curate your space, to take care of your energy, to make sure that even it might be an oversight, it may be a piece of disregard, but you will not do it with me?
Oh, gosh. You see, but it's difficult or tricky in that sometimes people think, they're doing the right thing and they mean well. So I can't fault them entirely. I have to constantly find ways to hold space for myself and be selective and know what I'm able to give. Because I've been talking about my journey, I've been talking about survivorship, and sometimes it's a lot. Mentally, emotionally, psychologically, it takes a toll. And particularly when people hit me up during October, because this is prime time, to talk about it, and I understand why. But it's equally important to me to really be selective in a way where people are not offended. And it's funny that I have to worry about offending people about my own experience, but you want to make sure people understand that, hey, I'd love to, but I can't, or I'd love to, but these are my conditions, So it's behavior change that we can't really control all the time.
You ever feel like sitting on October out? Just like...
I did last year. Last year I was like, nope, not doing any October stuff. I'm out. You all have a good time. Peace, And I didn't participate at all. And that was very intentional because I had a terrible experience the year before and that year before was really the first year right after, my first October after surgery. And I felt like, a little bit like everybody wanted a piece of me. And unwittingly, I became the poster child for breast cancer survivorship and awareness. And I decided, let me just dial it back. Now that I know better, let me kind of dial it back and hold more space for myself, if that was even possible.
And that's one of the reasons why it's almost as though we having this conversation titled "A Face of Survivorship," as opposed to the. Because sometimes when you have, it's a heavy load carrying everybody on your shoulder.
And my back is not that broad.
But in terms of like that month of October, you have annoying people like me just wearing pink. Some people might be wanting to participate in 5Ks and whatever. What, if we're looking at ideal circumstances, what would support look like outside of the year? What would partnerships, stakeholders, people working together, allyship, whatever, and you feel free to make your descriptors. But outside of the year, what would you like it to look like?
Outside of October, let's start at the very ground level with family and friends. Support there looks like coming over and helping your cancer survivor friend clean, offering to cook them meals for the week, taking them for a little drive to go to the house and go to their head a little bit, offering to babysit if they have kids. For the more corporate level or otherwise, support looks like if your cancer survivor friend has a business, you patronize that business. You recommend them for things that will generate income. You recommend them for things that will help them make an impact as well. Because some people like to use their experience as service, like me, and some people really just want to be left alone, and that is also fair and okay. But it's also a matter of knowing the person in your life, knowing what they're capable of, knowing what they would like to do, and knowing when they would like to be left alone and really leaving them alone.
And with that, we're not leaving you alone, but we're taking a short break. We are speaking with Mel Gabriel about different things that we should be thinking about as opposed to just pinking up the October and looking at functional support. Stay with us, we'll return with more. Welcome back. We are speaking with Mel Gabriel, and we are doing so looking at the range of issues that we can be speaking about. October, yes, is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, but there's so many other things. And you said during the month, during your what it is you're doing, you think of service.
Yeah.
And this phrase, Ubuntu, until all have crossed, none have crossed, Pat Bishop used to say, and some we have to carry. You're doing some work now, you're reaching out.
I am.
What is that about?
What I tend to let my life dictate my life, if that makes sense. So years and years and years ago, I really got my professional start in advocacy and social work. And everything has led me to this point where I'm using my experience to advocate for complementary breast forms for post-mastectomy patients. We don't have that service necessarily available through the public healthcare system. So it started with a bit of a PR push to sell T-shirts and raise funds for breast forms for mastectomy patients. And the intention is to partner with a lovely brand that I cannot name at this time, but to partner with them and have corporate TNT and others support the push for breast forms. Because, as a double mastectomy patient, I know all too well the lack of opportunity, I guess, to regain some feeling of womanhood and femininity, at least through public health care. And if I could, help 1 or 2 or 15 women feel like themselves again, that would be amazing.
You had to read and spell from a little bit.
Yeah.
In the sense that I'm asking, what are some of the things that you would think about, some of the factors? So I know material of the breast form would be one. I know silicone might be easier to maintain. I'm not sure what material the softies are.
Yeah.
What are some of the other things that individuals might be, or you yourself would have been looking at when you're saying, okay, well, that is the type, that is the material that I'm deciding to go with?
Well, it's all it's about look and feel, right? Some women would prefer silicone, and some women are fine with foam or whatever kind of soft gel inserts that are in the softies, I imagine. But it depends on the look and feel that the individual is going for, and the size. Because we can't just say, all right, we're gonna get 1,000 softies and they're all one size fits all. That's not how it works. We have to really have that consultation with the individual patient, see how they feel about even using the breast form at all. Some, like me, may have tossed all their bras after surgery and now they have nothing to really reference. And some are probably holding on to their bras and stuffing them with socks. It happens. So it's a matter of really just taking the time to understand each person and seeing what their needs are and then matching them to the material and the fill and all that.
And that personal touch, that individual basis is something that I think really interesting, because I remember we had a conversation with Natalie John earlier, and she was saying, as opposed to some people maybe tossing bras, some people may be tossing the prosthesis that they get because it may not be the right feel or fit for them. As you said, it's a very individualistic something. Yeah. And it may not be something that you feel empowered enough to have a conversation about and say, I don't necessarily like this.
Yeah.
So as opposed to that, you just, well, just toss it and not talk about it.
Yeah, because we have this culture of, take what you get and be grateful, and you always have to be grateful. But it's like, this is a very personal amputation. It's jarring. It's difficult to even put a breast form on and walk around. Like I tried. I walked around for the day. I felt, the weight of it and just to see how it would be. And it was cumbersome. But I imagine it was cumbersome and a little bit of I can't use that language, but a little bit of a mind game, because I have been, flat for 2 years. And to have, breast forms on now, and I'm wearing breast forms now, where, you're trying to get used to it again and trying to get used to this idea of breasts and curves and shape. But it is weird. It's weird. I could see why somebody would toss it. I'm ready to toss mine right now.
And you're saying that, and it's carrying me back. And I say back to when I had some work being done on my leg. So I had a brace, well, not a brace. My leg, somebody broke my leg for me. But I had an external fixator as opposed to a cast.
Okay.
So there was like about so let's say 3.5 inches more. So it's like almost like a briefcase handle.
Right.
And just sense of space and how it is you're fitting into space and how it is you're moving with space
Yeah.
was so different. So especially if you're already, you've come, you said 2 years, and then you're dealing, and just the way that you move, the way that you occupy space is something that is very different.
Yeah.
And looking at what it is you do, helping to curate bodies, helping to curate platforms, what are some of the things that actually go through you've experienced or you've helped individuals with, you've had conversations about the way that you curate your body, curate your mind, dealing with current situations?
Well, when it comes to the actual breast form side of it, this is still early days in terms of actually curating that space. But as a survivor, you tend to have conversations with other survivors, right? And that's natural. And what I tend to get often is, just not feeling whole, not feeling like who I once was. And it's a hard thing to reconcile, because now you still have to move through the world and move through life and do all the normal things while you don't feel normal, and nobody could understand it because they haven't had the experience and they can't read your mind. But then you don't want to talk about it with someone who's not necessarily having that same experience, because they won't get it. And they may try to say something helpful, but it will come off as, this kind of placating experience from them, and that's annoying. So you just don't bother.
But with that in mind, how important or how significant can support circles be? And who are some of the individuals that make those support circles? Because like you said, like we've been saying, everyone is different.
Yeah.
Everyone will have their own set of circumstances. But if you were to take from your experience and say, because we're not necessarily asking you to give advice, because once again,
Yeah,
what worked for you?
definitely will not necessarily work for everyone else. What worked for me was, I am the definition of gallows humor, right? I have a dark sense of humor. It works for me. I would laugh at anything and keep it light, because it helps me really cope and deal with everything. What I noticed too is that it helps the people around me deal and cope, because I'm able to, find humor and lightness in my situation. It helps them, accept what's happening easier or more easily. And I tend to have, a group of really funny friends who will wait for me to make the joke first before they make the joke, which is good. And my family, like I have a massive family, and we're all from South, and we have this huge cousins group, and we talk the most amount of trash. So it helps, and everybody is like, yeah, you're good. We know you're not good, but you're good, and just having people in your corner and in your circle who actually know you and know when to make the joke, or know when to leave you alone, or know when to say, hey, you all right? That's golden. That's like enough, especially the part about leaving you alone.
And with that, just before we leave you alone, Mel, how do persons interact with you, engage with you, follow your journey, but more importantly, see how they can become a part of it in terms of like helping to fund some of those prostheses?
Amazing. On Instagram, like I say, I hate to tell people my Twitter, but on social media, I am Mel Gabriel. That was not a typo. MEHGABRIEL. So that's Instagram, Twitter, TikTok is a lot of behind the scenes vibes on TikTok. And Caribbean Lookbook is the main platform. And through Caribbean Lookbook, that's our social responsibility. We're calling it Caribbean Look Boobs. Don't judge me. But it's Caribbean Look Boobs. And you can either order a t-shirt or get involved in some other way by emailing care@caribbeanlookbook.com. So.
And we'll actually share those handles as well. But we want to thank you very much for spending the time. giving us that insight so that we can know how to deal certain ways, because sometimes you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
So with that, we want to thank you once more. And we want to thank you. This has been In Depth with me, Dike Rostant. Thank you so much for joining.